Seth.
Hello, my friend. How are you, Quinn?
I'm great. I'm so excited to chat to you. So, I'd love to have a conversation about hopes and dreams for AI. I would love to go into your perspective and how you feel about it and have fears naturally come up. And, the conference that we're doing is for educators, but I think it's also for anyone that's interested in this kind of humanity AI within the realm of education. So, what are your hopes and dreams?
So many good places to start. First of all, AI doesn't care about my hopes and dreams the same way a hammer doesn't care about my hopes and dreams. It's a tool. The human brain only is able to navigate complicated situations by imagining that inanimate objects or animals have a voice in their head the way we have a voice in our head. That we say, if I were that, whether it's a hurricane or a dog, I would do this. And that's what we've done with AI. We've put a little person in the machine, a homunculus, to imagine what it's going to do. That's not what's happening. What's happening is there's a tool, and we are tricking our brains into giving that tool a sort of agency that it currently doesn't have. So when I think about AI, a topic I've been building and studying since 1982 at Stanford, um, what we need to realize is number one, it's really, really cheap for what it does. And number two, it's always on. And when we combine those two things, something that is cheap, patient, always on, and has awareness of its situation, we find an extraordinary tool for educators, not something that should be viewed as a threat simply because it can write a mediocre essay as well as a high school student, but because it's always there and it always knows. It doesn't know what a human knows, but it knows how to do what it does. And like all tools, we could avoid it or we could embrace it. And if we embrace it, it will get better because we will use it better. And so my hope is that we stop being afraid of the new, because being afraid isn't going to change anything. And my dream is that we have this present narrator that keeps us on track and helps us get to where we want to go because we know how to use it.
And so, what do we need to do? Like, I hear making a choice in what you're saying, but like, what are some of the things that we need to actively do in order to make that happen?
Well, the first thing is you're not using it enough.
Mm.
And simple example, I did a survey, asked a bunch of people what could be better about something. And I got 300 responses. And if I had started reading those 300 responses as a human being, I would be influenced by vibrant language and the order I read them, and then fatigue. Instead, I copied all 300, pasted it into ChatGPT and said, please summarize this. And it wrote me half a page with 18 bullet points. And it was amazing, right? If you're not doing that, then you don't know how it works.
Mm.
If you're not figuring out how to say to a student, take the essay you wrote, type it into ChatGPT and ask it to rewrite it, and now come in to class and talk about whether it made it better or worse, you're not teaching kids about the tool. The same way you can't teach an industrial arts class and have no hammers. That we need to be able to keep touching this thing. That's how we're going to get better at it.
Yeah, and somebody was saying that it's the resistance to it isn't helpful because like it's going to be in their lives for the rest of time or better. And so starting to embrace it now and normalizing it into how we do what we do. I love that essay example, is only going to serve them and you better. So what else? And kind of to that conversation as well at the conference, which is about like, okay, and how do we amplify our humanity? Like, so then if that's happening,
Right.
what is our human touch role in that?
As usual, Quinn, you got right to it. What AI is good at and going to continue to be good at is replacing mediocre human work. By mediocre, I mean average, because that's what it does. It trains on the average. So you can't say to it, write a jazz classic that no one's ever heard before. But what you can say to it is, please take 5 Kenny G songs and write a 6th Kenny G song. because it knows how to pattern match. If you're a radiologist, a mediocre radiologist, you need to accept that AI cannot read a mammogram or a wrist fracture x-ray better than you can. And it can also do it instantly, and it can do it anywhere in the world. So amplifying our humanity means ceasing to be mediocre. And if you're an educator, it means stop training people to be mediocre, compliant, obedient cogs in a system that needs that, because the system doesn't need that anymore. And we built school to do that. The normal school, which is the first teachers' college in the United States, was called the normal school, not because it's in Normal, Illinois, but because it was training teachers to train kids to be normal. And this is all a metaphor in and of itself, right? The reason that we're afraid of AI is because AI will let the kids do the mediocre work, and then we won't be able to tell if they're doing the mediocre work. Oh, well, that's a symptom. It's a symptom that we've been busy pushing kids to be compliant and mediocre. And I get that there are 30 kids in the classroom, or maybe even 40. And I get that the administration keeps giving you ever more difficult things to adhere to, standardized tests, curricula, et cetera. The system is broken, but we're not going to fix it by whining about it. We're going to fix it by being subversive, by figuring out how to do something else in the class that wakes people up, teaching them that you can't say you can't play, teaching them that leadership is not the same as management, teaching them to solve interesting problems, never asking someone to memorize things that they can just look up, because memorization is like cursive handwriting. It has no function for most people most of the time. So it's a big, tall order that's all triggered by this little piece of software.
What else is there in this subject matter for you that I haven't asked about that you think about, or you're wondering about, or you're curious about as we kind of step into this next decade?
I think the breakthrough is going to be 10% productivity, meaning we've already mechanized as many jobs as we could easily mechanize. AI is going to mechanize the next batch, but 90% mental health. I think that the mental health possibilities here are huge. And we need to approach it with clarity and candor and patience. But we now have a worldwide epidemic of trauma, damaged attention spans, inequity, and neuroses. We got that way because we mechanized and industrialized and mediaized ourselves. And I feel like a patient, insightful, always on AI could help people become who they want to become, as opposed to being victims. But that is something that's going to take leadership from humans to happen. And I'm hoping we'll find it.
Thank you so much for having this conversation.
Quinn, so many hugs. Thanks for leading in all things.
You're welcome.